My apologies to the committee for getting the meeting started a little bit late. One of the joys of COVID-19 is working from home and juggling being at home with kids. And we had to do a bit of a handoff, my wife and I, and it happened right when the meeting was getting started. So appreciate your patience while we were doing that. All right, going through the agenda. First up, after roll call, I see all members present except for Member Bloomfield. Let's go ahead and move on to the second item of business. Approval of minutes. Would look for a motion from the committee for approval of minutes from August 18th, 2020, as well as September 3rd of 2020. Motion by Member Thompson, second by Member Smith. Any additions or corrections to the minutes from members of the committee? All right, hearing none. Ms. Morlock, please call the roll and the chair will vote.
Thank you. Member Beard.
Yes.
Member Johnston.
Yes.
Member Smith.
Yes.
Member Thompson.
Yes.
Member Friedrich.
Yes.
Chairman Barnett.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Do we have appearance by any members of the public this evening?
Chairman, we do not.
Okay, very good. Item 4 on the agenda, departmental matters. Mr. Sefa, our Director of Parks and Recreation. I would welcome you to the stage for your report.
Good afternoon. I just want to give a quick plug to the White Sox. Anyway, don't really have a whole lot. Just we're staying busy. We're in unprecedented good times. The campground has been completely full, both electric and non-electric. So far every weekend after Labor Day, which has never happened before. We're again full this weekend, next weekend, and the following weekend. So got some good revenue stream coming in. That's a good thing. Other than that, the pontoon continues to be popular. Our hours are cut down now to weekends only. It's still being reserved and rented out on Saturdays and Sundays all day. So we still have some revenue coming in there, which is good. So other than that, we're just trying to keep up with the mowing. Like I said, they've gotten me out of the office a few times and on a mower, and I found out it doesn't take long to get out of shape and sore. So other than that, I really don't have anything else, but I would sure be happy to answer any questions y'all would have.
Could you give us an update on the status of the waste pit at Comlara?
Yes, we did finally get the reports back from PDC, which is Peoria Disposal. Those were sent off to Stewart Spreading, and they are in the process of, well, by now they've sent the permit application off to IDPH, and that usually takes anywhere from 30 to 60 days to get back. Hopefully it's 30 and not 60 or more. I really don't know how everything's being affected by the COVID down in Springfield, but I hope we get that back sooner than later. And as soon as we get that, then we can start, they can start the process of draining the lagoon, which is going to come at a good time. I think I told you this last month that our campground usage, I would think, as it gets colder here, and our usage will certainly drop. And then obviously the flow of sewage to the sewage treatment plant will slow greatly or come to a stop, and then they can drain it, dredge it, and then they will be spreading the sludge on local farmers' fields. And they've got farmers set up that have said that they will graciously take that. And Stewart Spreading does all that. The park does, basically we're sitting back and we watch right now. So that's probably about all I can tell you. That's as much as I know right now.
Any questions from the committee? Vice Chair Beard, with that perfect hat you're wearing this evening.
Now, Mr. Stefan, were you going to stay around for the parks component of the budget later on?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Then my question's for them. Thank
Member Johnston.
Sorry, just a quick question. When do we officially end camping season?
Officially, it doesn't end. We do keep the front section of the campground open, sites 1 through 32. We do shut the back 2 sections off. Normally, we turn the water off and shut the shower house down around November 1st, give or take a week or so. It's all dependent on the weather. If it stays fairly warm, we'll stay open longer, and hopefully we can generate some more revenue. But if it gets colder quicker, we have to shut the water down because the water pipes are buried fairly
Sure.
shallow out there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Stefan, I think Member Thompson actually had brought this up last month as we sort of move through the issue that we've experienced at the waste lagoon and look forward to the future. I think the committee would be interested in hearing what our sustainability plan is to sort of keep up with the waste that's out there in a more regular manner, and if there's an opportunity to partner with farmers and others in the area, or Stewart Spreading, whoever it may be, to help ensure that we don't end up here again in another 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, if we get this dredged out now and get it to where it's supposed to be working correctly, I believe, and talking to Greg Hamaji from Stewart Spreading, we can go up to 10 years without having it dredged again. The only other plan we could do, we could expand the lagoon, but that would take some doing.
Okay. Anything else for the committee? All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, 4B, Mr. Doherty. Good to have you with us as always.
Thank you, Chairman and members. Since you've all got my report, I just want to highlight on probably 2 items on there that have kept me busy. And that is the morgue cooler project. I'm happy to announce that we're wrapping that project up and hope to have it online possibly as early as tomorrow, most likely Monday. That project's gone real well and it's happened in a timely fashion. So I'm very pleased with it, and our coroner is ecstatic about it. I don't think it could make her happier at this time. So good project. The other one I'd like to talk about real quick is the museum roof. As you know, that project is out for bid right now. We had, I think, 6 inquiries about the project, and we had a pre-bid meeting yesterday, and there were 3 contractors in attendance to that pre-bid. Tomorrow morning, Charnett Associates and myself will be hosting a walkthrough of the attic and the roof, and bids are due in next Thursday. I believe that's the 8th at 2 p.m. So that project is moving along very nicely as well. Of course, we're up against the weather here, so hopefully we'll have a mild entry into winter and be able to get something done up there. Are there any other questions about my general report? Be happy to answer them at this time.
Mr. Doherty, with the museum roof project, do you think we're going to be able to get that completely done before the weather really starts to turn, or just get partway there? Or?
That's the big question. As we discussed yesterday, if we can get the tear off done, there is a membrane that goes down, a vapor barrier membrane, and that's expected to make us watertight. So it all depends how soon we can get the contractor kicked off and the weather.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Okay. Thank you very much for your monthly report.
You're welcome, sir.
Item 4C, Administrator Rodriguez, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Barnett. As you know, the items to be presented for action all have to do with the recommended 2021 budget. It is my style, as was last year, to utilize the department heads as the expert in their particular areas. And I have asked most, department heads to create a PowerPoint to present to the committee to kick off the discussion. That was a membership request, and I absolutely concurred. And so that I know that it's really, Chairman Barnett, it's your call if we actually move on the action item, or if you would like Mr. Doherty, who's going to kick us off here, to just start with his PowerPoint. I know we didn't discuss that one fine detail of that part of it, but either way, Mr. Doherty is ready to start when the committee is. So.
Yeah, I think maybe a good approach to this, we could start with C1A, those items under the facilities management. And Mr. Doherty, if you want to give your presentation, and then we'll take, then when your presentation is done, we'll get a motion from the committee and a second. And well, actually, why don't we do that first in case there are any questions as we're going through your presentation. And if I may suggest to the committee, if Mr. Spanos agrees that this is, it's okay to do this, we could, I believe, move everything under 4C 1A if someone in the committee would like to, so that Ms. Morlock does not have to call roll for 8 items.
I believe that is acceptable.
Member Smith, make that motion. Member Johnson, second. Thank you. I thank you, and Ms. Morlock, I think, thanks you for the grouping those motions.
Yes,
Yeah.
I couldn't
All right,
find my socks.
Yeah. Mr. Doherty, if you'd like to jump into your presentation and start to take us through. And we'll wait until he's done and we have all of our questions answered before we go for the final vote. We'll consider all this just sort of the discussion portion of the motion. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Barnett. Next slide, please. Okay, this just shows our maintenance staffing currently. We're still down 2 positions. We have 2 openings. We have the opening for the maintenance worker, the entry-level position, and a maintenance mechanic too. I'm very pleased to report that the maintenance foreman position is working out real well. The person is helping me with a lot of the projects, so I'm very pleased with that move. Next slide. Okay. These are just the loans that we have that are outstanding till 2030, actually. And that's the roof replacements at juvenile detention and the government center and the 200 West Front Street, the health department elevator project. And soon we'll be adding the old courthouse roof. Next slide is the courthouse roof. We made great strides here just a few weeks ago. Got up there and did some more patching at the museum's request. Because of the interior leaking, you can see it just looks like a patchwork now. We've used various products to try to slow down the ingress of water, and with some success. Next slide. These are the government center north doors. The problem with this door, it doesn't look so bad, but I think you get the idea here that the threshold is severely ate out from salting. The doors are somewhat sprung and warped. We've had some problems with these doors securing. So I'm asking and recommending that we spend some money on these doors and get them replaced. Next slide, please. Okay, it's kind of a duplication, but we have the elevator loan repayment in there, and I'm asking that we start replacing. There's 3 boilers in that building for the health department, and hopefully we can get 1 replaced for $10,000. Next slide, please. Okay, juvenile detention center. We need a lot of things done out there. Starting at the beginning of the list there is we have a boiler that's been down for, actually, this will be its 2nd winter. And the reason it's costing a little bit more compared to the health department boiler, there's basically a 36-inch door to move equipment in and out. I may be in the market for cutting in a larger door. And of course, it'd have to be fire rated for the equipment and all that. But you can see the boilers in, that's the 2nd picture there from the left. And it's the 3rd boiler in. We'll get it out of there in 1 piece, but I'd like to, or in small pieces, but I'd like to put the new one in 1 piece. I've had a contractor working with me on that, and they don't make that exact replacement anymore. So the footprint may have to change, and thus another opening and maybe a set of double doors to get into that equipment room. The second item is for $12,685 is recirculation lines. Currently, JDC has a recirculation line. Excuse me, they do not have a recirculation line. They have a hot water line that sits stagnant, and it was, they had electric heat tapes on it so that to keep that stagnant water at an elevated temperature. I suspect that some of those electric heat tapes have gone out over the years of service. And what I'm proposing here is to go to the end of each branch or each wing and tie onto the end of the branch and actually do a recirculation of total movement of water constantly. Well, it won't be constantly. We could time clock it so where it's only usable during shower times and what have you. The second one is the loan repayment on the roof. The next one is $120,000 for the chiller replacement. The chiller got into our pocketbook a little bit this summer as we lost a compressor, and we bought a new compressor and limped through the rest of the cooling season. The next item is $35,000 for a water conditioning system. And that's kind of the picture of the third picture from the left. As you know, that building's fed from the normal water department, and its water and Bloomington's water awful hard on our devices, lavatory shower heads, and it costs us a lot of extra money in maintenance. I'm proposing to put in basically a water softener, so to say, to try to tame down the hard minerals in the water systems, and I think prolong the plumbing and all the water devices. The last item on there is $50,000 for the back driveway. If any of you have been out there, you can already visualize what's going on there. We've had quite a bit of erosion. It's an asphalt drive. It needs some gutter work done on it, drainage work, and then relay it. So that service drive is used quite a bit as we store records out of JDC, the circuit clerk's department, the state's attorney, and probably various others that I'm not aware of, but that back drive, and it's a sloped drive, is used quite a bit. Sees a lot of traffic. So next slide. Law and Justice Center. We are long overdue for an uninterruptible power supply. This is on the 7th floor in a penthouse, and this serves all of the Law and Justice Center. That's a battery pack unit. The first two photographs there are pictures of it. Really doesn't do it a lot of justice. It's a small piece of equipment with batteries in it, and it is to ride through any power disruption we have and filter power for the servers in the server room. The next item there, for all practical purposes, is just like JDC. It's a water conditioning system. I propose to put it's a little bit larger. That's why more money. That system would have to be put in the new jail annex, as probably well know that the annex serves potable water for both the Law and Justice Center now, as well as the jail. So that's going to have to be a little larger system. And the last item is $25,000 for facilities truck. Next slide, please. Okay, Animal Control Center is $18,000 for the new HVAC systems. There's actually 4 small systems, and they are small. They're basically a light commercial grades systems. There's one for the dog area, one for the cat area, the office, and then the back areas where they have let's see, did I get them all? Yeah, there's 2 for the office and the cat area, the dog pound area, and then the back storage area, or where the service area, where the veterinarian works. There's 4 systems there we'd like to get replaced. The next slide is Metcom. This one is just coming out of regular life of service. This is the uninterruptible power supply, and it's right now we have an Eaton Cutler Hammer power supply in there now, and Eaton is recommending that it be changed, whether we go with their product or whoever's. It's near its end of life, so that one's pretty much speaks for itself. It does the same thing as the Law and Justice Center. It's rides through any interruptions until the generator gets started, and also conditions the power. Those projects should keep me busy next year. Any questions?
Questions at all? Vice Chair Beard.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Fantastic presentation. Two questions. Can you just remind me and the committee the process for whenever we have improvements to the government center that's split with the city? How does like the door project, what's the process for assessing? Do you come into an agreement with your peer from Bloomington on assessing the need, and then we'll split the cost on that?
That's a good question, Vice Chair Beard. Administrator Rodriguez, do you have an answer for that? I guess I'm at a conclusion. We've done other projects over there, and I don't know how they're, if there's any charges to our tenants.
So the Public Building Commission pays the county for the operation and maintenance of the government center. And so Vice Chair Beard, I believe in most cases, it is McLean County that then takes on the burden of any of the fixes that occur. I will double check that with staff who have more longevity than I. But that has been, I've never gone to our city partners to negotiate sharing in the cost because the Public Building Commission does pay us to do the operations and maintenance.
Okay. No, thank you. Appreciate that. That door is kind of on their side of the building, so I didn't know if they'd given us feedback as well. The other question I had was, and I know we talked about it this year, and I'm just being forgetful right now. With Metcom, the parking lot resurfacing, did we do that, or that, because that was on our capital budget for 2021? Where is that at?
No, to answer your first question, no, we have not done that. And I believe.
Did we patch it or something? Or because I remember talking about it.
We've got it. We put it out a little bit. It's on the 5-year CIP summary, and it's for 2023. Actually, we increased the monies on that too, to do the entire parking lot rather than just do patchwork on it.
I think we may get into the weeds on that later on when we get through the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Member Johnson, did I see you had your hand up?
No, it was really to get into the weeds, and if we're going to tackle that when we do the CIP, then I can wait.
Okay. All right. Very good. Member Thompson.
Can we attempt to unmute Member Thompson? No?
Here we go. You got to turn the mouse. You shouldn't play with the mouse while you're idling because you get it upside down and it goes the reverse direction. So question on the battery pack. What is, I'm guessing they're both similar, life cycle on those? How long do they last? Maintenance costs?
The maintenance costs on those is about, they're around 1,500, 2,000 a year. And the life cycle, there's also the batteries in there. The batteries were just changed in like 2016 at Metcom. And then in 17, I believe we changed the batteries for the Law and Justice Center. The batteries have a life cycle of about 5 years. The UPS itself, you can expect anywhere from 15 to 20 years out of them. And this is the original UPS. These are 1992, 93 vintage machines.
How much are the batteries in?
The batteries, oh boy, the batteries are pretty large out at Metcom. I think they were upwards of about 15 grand, and I think the batteries here for the Law and Justice are much smaller. If I remember right, they were about $8,000.
Do you have any idea how many times a year this actually, the power surges where this comes into play?
No, I do not. I think the Law and Justice Center is so old that I'm not even sure if there's any kind of a microprocessor on it. that actually would log such an event. The one out at Metcom may, but I've never got a report that it's been in so many minutes of transition. So,
Just curious.
yeah, I mean, that's the glory of owning this type of equipment. You want it to transition. You don't want to have to know about it. I guess if I was a better steward of our equipment, I'd have that answer for you in concrete and tell you that it's transitioned 5 times during a year. But so far, we've been living life on the good side, and the equipment's been doing what it has to do. So that's a good question. I'll try to find that out for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Member Johnston.
Thank you. I did have a quick question, not for Mr. Doherty, but for Camille. Just trying to look through the budget numbers. One of the things that and I know that it always seems like we're lagging a little bit because we haven't finished the fiscal year. But I noticed that we're pretty significantly behind on like kind of the rent utilities reimbursement from 200 West Front Street. And I was just wondering if that's typical at this time of year, if we're just trying to wait for them to kind of catch up, or if they're just not there and we're not collecting as much because they're not using as much.
So to answer your question, and hopefully I can do that, I don't know why there would be a lag behind from the tenants that are in that building. They are there. They are all, to my knowledge, rent. Now, are you talking about what's projected for next year, or are
No,
you talking about actual?
About what's been collected as of now. We're at about approximately like 60%, but we're more than 60% into the year. So I was just curious if this is normal or if this is something that we really should be looking at. I mean, I just was wondering if that was an issue that we were facing.
Veterans and triage will pay at the end of the year.
Very good point. Thank you. Assistant County Administrator Dreyer reminded me that triage and which other unit?
Veterans.
Oh, veterans, the Veterans Commission, we do a transfer at the end of the year.
Okay,
So
that answers the question.
That's probably the what you are noticing in that difference there. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions at all for Mr. Doherty about his report, the presentation he shared? Okay, Administrator Rodriguez, I'd turn it back over to you to take us through all these budget items.
Well, fantastic. I know that Department Head Doherty walked you through. I have a couple of other highlights perhaps to share. I won't repeat anything that Mr. Doherty brought to your attention. I will say that with county administration, Mr. Doherty did well to work with us and refashion some of his salaries. So there are moments in the budget under the salary lines for facilities and maintenance where it looks as though things have had a decrease or an increase. But really what Mr. Doherty did with us is place staff in buildings that they tend to do the most work in. So that's kind of a style that Ms. Dreyer and I utilized when we worked together at the health department. And we find the actuals on that to be much better for us to do thoughtful planning and strategy throughout the year. So that was one of the changes you might see in the budget. Mr. Doherty went over a lot of the big expenditures. We will say that JDC drive at first, that back drive, we were going to actually recommend to wait, but county administration actually consulted with Jerry Stokes and Lou Cohulan from the highway department, and we went on a field trip of sorts, and the JDC was one of those field trips, and they did make that recommendation. But at first, we were going to ask for $75,000, and based on their assessment, we were able to accomplish what we think is the needed repairs and changes for 50. So that's really good news. We did mention that Metcom is going to wait and be delayed. At 200 West Front, you know, I know I can share that the Regional Office of Education is not going to be a tenant in 200 West Front going into 2021. They decided to move elsewhere, but we are working to adjust, and I think that some of our own operations are going to shift, which would increase their own rent, utilities, and maintenance. And then we are still going to actively look for other tenants, and so that's why we budgeted that as such. And then if you see any decreases in 200 West Front's budget in regards to other areas, that would be because we had to budget higher amounts in 2019 and 20 for the elevator replacement. So you will see those changes. We have not given an exact amount for the old courthouse roof replacement. That's one of the highlights that Mr. Doherty has been talking about. We would like to wait for more accurate amounts before we budget any actuals regarding the loan we will ask for from the Public Building Commission. We are having a Public Building Commission meeting the first Tuesday of October next week, and Charnette and Associates are going to join that meeting and talk about the project up until this point. Until the RFP is complete, though, we didn't want to bring forth any solid numbers until we have those from that process. We are pleased that we were able to add a maintenance person to be completely dedicated to the McLean County Detention Facility. I think Mr. Doherty noted that, but it was underscored. That's a huge accomplishment. When you add 80,000 square feet of space to the facilities department and yet don't add another worker, I think we don't do any justice to success in that regard. And so I was very pleased with staff's ability to put that together and to add another staff person for 2021 for Mr. Doherty and just dedicate that person to the detention facility. Otherwise, I think Mr. Doherty covered most of the rest of what I intended to cover with you. To that end, I will be brief then and take any questions that you might have. And sorry, my glasses keep fogging up, so I apologize. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
So these are questions from the committee for 4C1A, the items 1 through 8 that are underneath the facilities budget. Okay. Thank you very much, Administrator Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Seeing no questions, we have a motion and a second on the floor to pass all of these items as a group. I would ask Ms. Norlock to please call the roll. The chair will vote.
Thank you. Member Beer,
Yes.
Member Johnston,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Friedrich,
Yes.
Chairman Barnett.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, Ms. Rodriguez, floor is yours again.
Thank you, Chairman Barnett. I think it would be great to then move forward to get a motion on the floor for item C1B in advance of Mr. Steffa's presentation, which is request approval of fiscal year 2021 recommended budget for the Parks and Recreation Department budget, Fund 001, Department 0040.
And would love to entertain a motion to maybe take both of these together if we could.
Yes, absolutely. May I continue to go on then? Park Operations Program 0042 and the Services Program 0043. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Thompson, I thought I saw your hand go up first, and a second from Member Smith with that lovely St. Louis Cardinals t-shirt on today. All right, Director Steffa, if you'd like to talk us through this, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. If we can bring that PowerPoint up. There we go. You can go to the next slide, please. The beach house roof was part of our budget for this year. Unfortunately, our maintenance supervisor, he is actually a roofer by trade. He has come down with an injury and is going to be out for an extended period of time. In talking with the rest of the staff, we don't feel confident enough to do it. So I would like to encumber these funds for next year, so we can get this done next year. In the springtime, and we're just going to encumber what we had requested this year, the $10,000. I remember Member Smith asking back some time ago about, I think it was last year at this time, about a metal roof. We did look into that, and it is more expensive than doing it what I call the old-fashioned way, or the regular way of wood overlay and then the shingles. So we're going to request an encumber for 2021. You can go to the next slide, please. The new bait shop and boat rental. This was kind of a disappointment for me. In talking with the McLean County Sportsmen's Association, which I am a member of, they were going to donate $25,000 with a match from McLean County of $25,000. We normally do what's called our fundraiser banquet in February, and February coming up of this year or next year, 2021. We have decided not to do that, mainly because of the uncertainty of the COVID-19 restrictions. We had to make a call at the Interstate Center because they needed there was a deadline put forth on a deposit of $10,000 from the Sportsman's Club. And so with the uncertainty, we just decided to go ahead and cancel the 2021 fundraiser banquet. So we're certainly hoping by 2022, everything's back to, if there is such thing as normal. So we're going to push this new building project off until 2022. In talking to Brian Thomas, our maintenance supervisor, he told me there's a few things he can do to just kind of shore the building up to make sure it doesn't, cave in or fall over. But so I'm confident that we can get through to 2022 and with this. So I put in the slide, I advised the administrator's office if we could encumber funds. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure if that is even allowed to encumber funds 2 years out. So Administrator Rodriguez, I guess, could you answer that for us, please?
Sir, I'm not absolutely sure if we can go out 2 years, but I will get an answer back to the committee as far as if that can be done. I'm sorry, you're putting me on the spot a little bit. I wasn't prepared to answer that.
Sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry. I wish I knew the answer, but I don't want to give an incorrect one, so I'd rather wait and get the right answer.
Okay. And Talking to the sportsmen at our last meeting, they are still very interested in doing this project and going through with this partnership. So it's not like they're just saying, "Ah, forget it, we're not going to do it." So it's not like we're giving up on the project, but at this time, we just felt that it'd be wise, since the uncertainty of the COVID-19 restrictions, that we watch our money in our bank account for the Sportsman's Club. Could I have the next slide, please? This was something that's ongoing. I had this slide up here last year. The ongoing road repairs inside the campground and what we call the MRA, or main recreation area road, from the entrance of the park down to the like the swimming beach area, the bait shop, boat rental, those areas. And again, I believe Jerry Stokes and Luke O'Hulan, excuse me, and the assistant county administrators came out and did an assessment on that as well. So they're coming up with ideas to save money on that as well. But some of the roads are in pretty bad shape. I mean, it's been a long time since they've been repaired or replaced. So, can I have the next slide, please? You can keep going. Those are all pictures of the roads. Okay, an additional new pontoon for the boat rental. Requested $20,000 this for next year. This is something that even I didn't imagine would happen. The popularity in the pontoon. We paid for this year. We paid for our first pontoon. It was $18,100. So far, revenue brought in is just over $27,000. So we've been extremely happy with that. Blew everybody's expectations out of the water. But the reason why I did request an additional one for next year is because we have turned several people away. We get phone calls constantly having to turn people away. So I did request $20,000 for next year. I would like to go up to the next size larger than this one, because it'll hold this one. The one that we got this year holds 8 to 10 people. The one, if we get an additional one for next year, will hold 12 to 14 people. And so that's why you see it's a little bit more than last year. I just figured, and we would, the fee for that would be a little higher than the one that we got this year. So, and I'm fairly confident now that we could make our money back on that next year as well. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? An additional, this is just, I know that's kind of small. I hope it's not too small for you guys to see. An additional mooring dock / rental dock addition down at the boat rental. We are running out of mooring space for people to moor their boats, and probably 95% of the slips are moored out to people with pontoons. So our idea was, and I know it may be hard to see, but the two where I have the extensions on the two inside docks, we would move the rental boats in there, so because it's not as wide, and that way we could use the outside docks, both ends, specifically for the mooring slips, and that way we'd have more area for additional spots. We have had quite a few phone calls again. I'm I don't know if I want to raise the fees a little bit on that or not, but I didn't realize just how low we were for a mooring slip for the season. So we're a lot lower than Lake Bloomington and Dawson Lake, Clinton Lake. So that's when we do comparisons, that's normally who we compare with, our local places, recreation places. So we are fairly low as far as our fees charged. So may bump those up a little bit. This year we had one spot left this year. So I'm very confident that next year we're going to need more than one more spot. So that's the reason why I was requesting $20,000 to have this addition put on. You can go to the next slide, please. And I think that's about it. We did have, I had some, I bumped some one line up to purchase some additional, I think it was the 620 line. I'm sorry, it's escaping my mind right now, but to purchase some additional canoes and kayaks. We just cannot keep up with people wanting canoes and kayaks. So advantage and purchase those more than likely through there, and it's a substantial cost savings doing so. I think that was pretty sure that was all I had that I bumped. Oh, I'm sorry. The rental line and the 700 lines, I did have that bumped up a little bit to rent out a skid steer, well, I call it a track steer, for removal of non-native species. This is an ongoing project we've been doing, usually in the off season, of removing autumn olive and bush honeysuckle and replacing it. We have an ongoing reforestation project going. That's going quite well. Now we're going to start concentrating on some of these areas that we're removing these non-native species. We're going to start doing some pollinator / prairie fields. Most of the pollinator and prairie fields, basically all we have to do is the removal, and Pheasants Forever, along with and working with the McLean County Soil and Water Conservation District, they will come in and actually they pay for the seed and actually will plant it for us. So it's a pretty good program we got working with them. So we have been prepping some areas just for that. We are going to do some fall plantings. Never done that before. Some fall seedings for pollinator fields. So this will be a first for me. But there's a big area on the south end of the lake that we'd like to get cleared late fall into winter. Hoping that it doesn't get too cold and too snowy here this year, so we can get that done, and we would have a pretty substantial site. I'm talking about probably a 50 or 60 acre area that would be planted in a pollinator field. So that is all I have, I promise.
That's all great information. Appreciate you sharing all that. Member Friedrich.
Yeah, Mr. Steffen. I'm grateful that the pontoons and everything are renting out very well. My question to you is, have you experienced any safety issues with the boats? I mean, we have these people, you must have, or I'm hoping you have a good training process for instructing those people out there. One is safety, and second part of that question is damages to any of the equipment. Is it normal or excessive? Where are you at on those two items?
As far as safety goes, yes, we have a little quiz, if you, I guess you could call it a quiz, that the people that we ask people questions, basic questions on boating and boat safety. So if they can't answer basic questions, we do not let them take it out. As far as safety equipment, we provide all safety equipment. We do ask them if they know how to use a fire extinguisher. We tell them that all kids 13 and younger have to wear life jackets at all times. We go by the state regs. Actually, it's 12 and under, and have to wear them at all times. We do give the adults options whether or not they want to wear a life jacket, but we recommend that they do. But as far as an enforcement issue, we cannot, I guess we can force them, but we can't give them a ticket as far as a conservation infraction, if that makes sense. But we normally just give them the option to wear the life jacket, but it comes with everything else: the whistle, like I said, the fire extinguisher, life jackets. As far as usage, yes, whenever you let the public use your stuff, sooner or later something's going to happen. Not thankfully, nothing's happened. We haven't had any problems yet. I know we will with the pontoon. So a lot of times we have had problems with our rowboats with our motors. They're small 4-cycle motors from Mercury, and people just don't know how to. Even though we ask them, and we even have a placard that stays in the boat on the how-tos of starting and stopping the boat and such. And it seems it's inevitable that we have people think they know better than what they should know on how to start a motor. So a lot of times we've had problems of people calling us at the visitor center saying, hey, we're stranded out on the lake. And it's just basically a common sense thing. We go through a checklist with them, and probably 9 times out of 10 that we fix it just by going through. They've either kept the choke out or something like that, or they haven't vented the gas tank. It's just usually simple stuff like that. Now, we have had some problems with people running the motor into the substrate or the bottom of the lake when they get too close to the shoreline. So we tell them, we try to educate them on proper operation when they get close to the shoreline. Does that answer? I hope that was sufficient.
Yeah, it was. So circling back, nobody's gotten hurt out there.
Nope.
Have been no. Okay.
I can remember, Friedrich, we did have, this has been several years ago, was when we had a drowning over Memorial Day weekend, and that was from an adult actually not wearing, who did not know how to swim and whose 2 young children were in the boat with him and his wife. And the children were wearing their life jackets and they fell overboard, and he panicked and went in he panicked thinking his kids were going to drown, and he ended up drowning. So that was that happened. Mr. Bill Wasson, who used to be our county administrator and used to be our park director, was still the park director out there. So it's been 20 plus years since, but nothing has happened since then.
Vice Chair Beard.
Thank you. I have 2 items. They're unrelated, so I'll just mention one now and then let other folks go around the room. And I don't know if this is necessarily a question or just some comments. For the bait shop, I mentioned this. We talked about this briefly earlier in the year. One, love the partnership idea. And so whatever the process is to keep that on the budget for 2022, I would support the appropriate process for that. 2, in terms of if we're going to rebuild that building out there, I really think there's an opportunity to partner potentially with ISU on seeing, hey, can we put solar panels or utilize renewable energy for that. And then also ISU's got their construction management students out there in a construction management program with interns and students who would really assist with that. I think I would like to see us pursue that in the upcoming years to see if we could do something that one saves us money, but really is a nice building that we could partner with these organizations like the Sportsman's Club, potentially like ISU and some of their programs on renewable energy and on construction trades to build a nice building out there, have a nice project that will last a long time and be efficient, be a good model for the area, and be in alignment with kind of the what we want out of Cumlar Park. So I just want to again throw that out there. I think I provided some names earlier in the year, professors, folks at ISU who do that, who have those students available looking for projects to work on. So I just want to continue to push that idea for Mr. Steffa and our administration.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Please, go ahead.
Former facilities director Jack Moody and I did work with that department at ISU on a different project. I would love to work with them again. Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea, and I would be more than happy to work with them again. I will definitely contact them.
Thank you. Yeah.
Questions from the committee. Member Johnston.
Get you unmuted. Okay, just had a couple quick questions, kind of looking at the budget. For the dock expansion, and you have to educate me on this, Mr. Steffa, like how long do docks usually, what's the lifespan of those? Because we're looking at investing 20,000 average if we're doing like 350 to 450 per slip, maybe 4,000 a year return. How long would we expect that dock to kind of last?
The frame is actually a steel frame, and those will last. Well, the original one is still out there, and that's at least 20 years old.
Okay.
The only thing that we really have to maintain are the boards that go on top, and we've switched from the wooden boards to those composite boards. They're kind of a mixture, I think, of wood and plastic. Those seem to last a heck of a lot longer. There's less maintenance. The wooden boards, we usually had to go out almost every year and stain them or put Thompson's water seal on it. And these composite boards just seem to work a heck of a lot better.
Okay. The other piece is I noticed that on our packet, page 37 in the budget, we were talking about potential additional revenue generated from extra campsites. Is there a cost? Maybe I missed it. Is there a cost to creating these additional campsites?
There's really no significant cost. It would just take us take man hours to bring in, clear some sites out, put maybe some rock down in some areas. I'd like to put at least 6 to 8 more primitive campsites in the main, what we call the main campground on the east side of the park. And then there's an area on the west side of the park where I think we can put in another group campsite that those are used for not-for-profit groups like Boy Scout, Girl Scouts, church groups, things like that. There's certainly plenty of area, and there's a parking lot, a big parking lot right there. That one wouldn't take really anything other than putting some picnic tables, and you would incur some costs there of buying the picnic table frames, and then we build our own. We just get the frames for the picnic tables and then get our own lumber and build our picnic table. So that's where the cost would be, and the number of picnic tables and fire rings is not that significant.
Okay. And then the last item I had on page 38, the $10,000 sort of set aside for a potential ad. I think that had the COVID restrictions not happened and we hadn't, people are using the park really to the max. It's amazing. And I love to see that. If that hadn't happened, I would definitely be in favor of that, but I'm a little concerned that we'd be advertising to people that wouldn't be able to get in. At this point, because we're full, I'm wondering if we should maybe pull that line item from the budget and just kind of set aside that $10,000 and not use it for the ads right now.
I'm sorry. I was hearing about every other word of that. I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, there was feedback. Yep, I hear it now. Would you mute yours while I talk maybe? I think it's feedback from your phone. Okay.
He's muted.
So he's muted. Okay, so what I was hoping is that because the park is really at capacity and it's well beyond even like Labor Day, I'm wondering if we shouldn't pull that potential money for advertisement, as it seems unnecessary to spend it at this moment. If we see a dip in participation and rentals, then I would absolutely want to bring that back, because I think that it is a huge resource that we have that we need to be promoting. But right now, I feel like if we promote it and have people come, it's going to be disappointing that they can't get in.
Yeah, I would not be opposed to that. I agree with you 100%. The one thing that a positive thing that's come out of this COVID thing is absolutely we've gotten such higher usage and exposure, people just wanting to get out, and I would agree with you.
So just to clarify, Member Johnston, would you like to make a formal motion that those dollars be removed from the budget at this time, or are you just encouraging staff to sit on that money and not spend it unless we actually need to use it?
Initially, I was wanting to motion to have it removed from the budget, but if we feel like we want to keep it just in case, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it, but I also don't want us to rush to spend it if it's not necessary. So I guess I can leave that up to the committee and see how we feel about putting it on reserve or actually removing it from the budget.
Well, I'm going to inject one other thought into this conversation that I was going to bring up, and then we'll take comments from the committee if we can. One thing I would mention is I certainly do appreciate the focus on local television channels, but I do question a little bit putting all of our eggs in that basket and not focusing some of our social media or some of our advertising on targeted social media campaigns that reach sportsmen and other folks who may be interested in using Conlaura Park and trying to promote it that way as well. I believe Member Thompson, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, so yeah, I would agree with you, Josh, that TV, I haven't turned my TV on to a local station in quite some time, so I think there might be better avenues, but I also think that if we could maybe have a discussion before we do start advertising or something, we can talk about it, leave the money there, and before we just go out and spend it. So I would recommend that if we could just have a discussion, leave the money there, but just have a discussion before we do it.
Member Beard, Vice Chair.
Hey. Thank you. And I have another obligation right now that I have to jump off to. But thank you for this discussion, and I would voice my support for the remaining votes ahead of us. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Barnett, if I may add, I know that this line is called advertising, but it's also / legal notices. And if in fact we do have to RFP for any of the projects slated for the park, that may not necessarily have to occur, but as Mr. Stefan noted, that some of the internal capacity to complete certain projects may not be there as we planned. It has become quite expensive to advertise in our local newspapers per the requirements of request for purchase or for projects. And so I just think I absolutely understand if the committee, if it would please the committee for us to reduce the amount. And yet I do think that county administration was also thinking that there could be some costs related to legal notices should we have to RFP for any of our projects.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? Member Friedrich?
Yes, Elizabeth, I commend you on your thought process of keeping budget in check, and that's very admirable. I think it's duly noted by the departments now that we'll proceed with caution with any advertising, and I'm in favor or support of leaving the 10K in there and just carrying it on through, but I'm right there with you on that.
It sounds like the general consensus is that we would just leave that in place and then just to address that as it would come up later on in the year, if that's agreeable with the committee. Okay, all right, very good. Any other questions or comments from the committee members concerning the rest of the Parks and Recreation Department budget? Okay, Administrator Rodriguez, is there anything in the Parks and Rec budget that you would like to highlight for the committee that hasn't already been touched on?
The only thing I'll add is you will see some small changes in the salary lines, and we had a vacant, it was a 0.90 vacant FTE. We took it out and then went ahead and increased the seasonal line in the campground budget to adjust for the increased interest in our campgrounds. And so If you see any changes in that area, that's what that is for. But otherwise, I believe Mr. Steffa covered everything else that I intended to highlight. So good teamwork.
Okay. Very good. Seeing no other comments or suggestions from the committee, I will ask Ms. Norlock to please call the roll for 4C, 1B, items 1 and 2 that were motioned together, and the chair will vote.
Member Johnston,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Friedrich,
Yes.
Chairman Barnett.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Steffa. As far as property committee goes, you have a budget for next year. Let's hope it keeps on through the rest of the process.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm gonna get off of here real quick, but I'm gonna get back on. My phone's about ready to die. I gotta go find a charger.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay, Administrator Rodriguez, I'd turn it back over to you for the remainder of your section.
Thank you, Chairman Barnett. I note the report on recent employment activities on page 40 of your packet, mostly nursing home, sheriff's department, and triage, nothing for Parks and Rec or facilities at this time. So unless you have any questions there, we can get on to the capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
So I know, I don't know if you want to kick this off, Chairman. It was really to your credit that we have sort of a new look, new and improved booklet with different looking project pages. So I don't know if you had any words to give before we start going through the document.
I would just say thank you to administration for indulging me and the committee in our desire to reformat the capital improvement plan moving forward. Certainly appreciate your partnership in this, and appreciate all the work that went into the staff's process as they were soliciting project ideas from the department heads, as well as listening to suggestions from the committee, and then just the work itself that went into reformatting this book to make it a more robust and usable product, not only for staff and for the members of the county board, but also for the general public if they'd like to have a deeper dive and a better understanding into how it is that we are spending the taxpayer dollars they are entrusted us with. So I guess with that said, I would be happy to have you start to walk the committee through this.
Thank you. So I think one thing of note is that this committee does not actually approve the capital improvement plan. So that's one of the reasons why it was not an action item. Those of us that are not so seasoned in this needed a reminder, including myself. So I know that some folks ask me that, and sure enough, no, this committee does not actually take action to approve it. That happens at the full board, but it makes sense because many of the projects as listed within this booklet are associated with different departments and therefore different oversight committees. So starting on page 48, for example, all the way through the last page, which I think is in the mid 80s, that's all the highway department, and therefore the transportation committee will be looking at those items embedded within the actual budget. And that's actually what happens with all of these capital improvements. They are recorded here and they are detailed, but they are actually found within the budget and approved by each oversight committee. Then during the November County Board meeting, the actual entire booklet will be brought forth for approval by the county board in its collective state. So with that said, we have some choices. I know it's already late, and I know we could go through a lot of this. One of the things I'd like to say definitely about the improvements in this book is that I'm finding the actual pages where we have the projects detailed as a living document and as the beginnings of a project plan. And so what is good about this for us, for county administration reporting to you about updates on a project, is we can continue to bring back these pages to you, but perhaps with updates. For example, if we received an estimate and it turns out the project cost less to complete than we thought, or conversely, if it ends up costing more, we would use this as our way to communicate with you and update you. But in addition, we can use this to guide staff. So Mr. Doherty, for example, can bring these project worksheets to his staff, and it can really become a living document all the way from those who are making sure the work gets done to this committee who is approving the work to get done, if it is for Mr. Steffa or Mr. Doherty. With that said, I can't say enough how much staff in county admin and even department heads are appreciative of this new look, because it really helps us have a little more detail even internally as we proceed. Now, many of the things that are in this improvement booklet have already been discussed this evening, especially when Mr. Doherty and Mr. Steffa brought forth some of the highlights in their PowerPoint presentations. And that's why Chairman Barnett, and to the committee, I will say, would you prefer to ask questions versus me going through each page? I know that project priorities were made throughout all of our meetings with department heads. When we made compromises, I know that many county board members have said to me, well, what did you say no to when department heads came asking for things? And Mr. Steffa noted quite accurately that Parks and Rec wanted $100,000 to redo the roads out at the park. The compromise was to stretch out that project over 3 years so that it could be more amenable to the bottom line, but still get the work done. And that was why the assistant county administrators and the highway department went out to the park together and chose the areas of the park that needed the attention first. And therefore, some of those were priority ones, some twos, and some threes as we move through the phases of this particular book. With that long speech, I will say, again, I'd be happy to go through page by page. I will also be happy, because I know you're a thorough group. I'm sure you have questions for me or Mr. Doherty, or even Mr. Steffa when he has returned, just in case you have specifics for those two departments that report to you directly as a committee. So I will wait and see how you'd like to proceed. We'd be happy to answer questions. We'd be happy to talk about specific projects that were not discussed in the presentations, etc. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we want the committee to be very familiar with the items that are in here, because even though the capital improvement plan gets approved by the full board in the end, and even though the back half of it is specific to the highway department and the transportation committee, the other facilities, improvements and upgrades that are in this book eventually will be flowing through this committee as we go throughout 2021. And we'll be kept up to date on those things. We want to be sure the committee is familiar with these items, and I guess is comfortable with what is in here, and we sort of have some of that discussion up front before things are officially approved and we get through them into 2021. Member Johnson, I saw you had your hand up.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
I did have my hand up. I would prefer if we could just ask specific questions, because some of them are pretty straightforward. So if is everybody agreeable to that? Okay.
You have the floor.
I have the floor. I will try to keep mine as concise as possible. One of the questions I did have for Mr. Doherty was the water softening systems that we're going to get. I didn't see any kind of line items in for maintenance or for just kind of managing that system. Is that something that we've calculated? Is that something that we're aware of?
I'm really not prepared to talk about that this time. Of course, there will be some maintenance. There's a lot of different, when I looked out to suppliers almost 2 years ago with this idea, I found out that there's a lot of different systems. You can use your old salt system. There's electronic ionization type systems. So no, I don't have a thorough plan put together per se right now, as more so just a budgetary plan to move forward with the concept. So I expect there's going to be various upkeep and maintenance required on the different systems. I think as we get further along with this project and the money's approved, then I'll be able to answer your questions.
So is this something that you're hoping to be able to get a couple of different quotes to present to us, or that to have discussion about that? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then the next item that I had a question about was I'm just reading through about the Metcom parking lot. I know that we are having issues right now when they come through for like snow removal. Are we planning to do patches for the next 3 years? Because it's not slated to be done until the third quarter of 2023. So that's 3 years from right now. Is it something that's going to be able to hold until then? And then versus like I've driven into, just I haven't recently, but the government center parking lot, I feel like that's in better condition, but it's slated to be redone sooner. And I was wondering if there was a particular reason that we didn't switch those.
Good point.
There's always the opportunity.
Is there comment from administration on that?
Yeah, this is harder to do when I'm up here alone. I was not on the on-site examination field trip. Those were the sites that were visited. At this point, I do think that, we can always reconsider moving, forward sooner the Metcom parking lot. But I do believe we took the recommendations of our county engineer and staff that it was more of a priority to do the government center lot than it was the Metcom lot. And I'm sorry, I don't have any more scientific or technical reason than taking their recommendations at this point.
So maybe I can just put an email into Jerry and find out what his reasoning was for that. Mainly because it sounds, just from the description, the Metcom parking lot is in much worse condition than the government center. The other question I had was on for you, Mr. Doherty, at the 200 West Front Street building, the VFD.
Yes.
The over on page 12. Again, this is looking at a year. Do we expect that the current system is going to be able to withhold for the year? Is this something that can wait until the third quarter?
Absolutely. That you're just not reaping any energy savings right now.
Okay.
That's the only difference. We are running that fan and the motor, but it's just what they call across the line. So it's 100% wide open. The VFD will bring you some energy savings.
Okay. So we're not in danger of it like failing.
No.
Okay. That was the question on that. And I think the last real question that I had was more for Mr. Stefa. Looking back at like page 46, 47, the Route 66 construction. I just had a question. Is this something that because it's looking to go out to kind of the west side of town, is it anywhere close to Rivian? Because I didn't see like a location as to what we're trying to acquire.
Yes, that's fairly close. I believe it's within a mile or a half mile of Rivian.
And so when we were talking earlier about like partnerships, I'm wondering, because they are, they're considered more of a green company, the electric vehicles, they're very outdoorsy. I was wondering if there was any way we could try to reach out to them to do a partnership, to, whether to help co-fund it or to sponsor it, or to see if there's some way we can come up with some kind of partnership with Rivian, that they could kind of put their name on, that's pretty close to them, their employees would be able to use. So just a thought to throw out there. Nothing, I have a problem with the issue. Just if it was going to be near Rivian, I thought we could try to work something out with them.
I think that's an awesome idea, and absolutely, I will be more than happy to contact them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Member Smith.
Yeah, I had a question for Mr. Doherty, for the projects on page 24 and 25, the cameras and the intercoms. Is this being brought to you as a potential safety issue, or just something that needs to be done within the next 5 years, obviously?
I believe this is, let's address 24, the restricted hallways. I think this is more of a safety issue than anything else. And then the next one for the video intercoms, that one there, I really don't have a whole lot of information about that. I think that's something that Will Scanlon from the court services submitted. I don't sound like I'm picking on you, Administrator Rodriguez. Do you have any background on that one?
No, you're not picking on me at all. I would concur with your answer on the first portion, that it is a safety issue. There are blind spots in those hallways, and it will be helpful for staff to have the camera systems installed. The project on page 25 is more so so that judicial staff don't have to physically go out in the hall. So I'd have to say it's a combination, mostly for safety, so that the staff doesn't have to go out in the hall and physically bring others into the area. And of course, it's easier, but first and foremost, both of these are about safety and security.
Thank you.
And then I guess my follow-up would be, do you know if court services or even the sheriff's department is comfortable with this timeline of the work being done? Would they prefer it to be sooner? Can we afford it to be sooner?
All of the department heads want everything that they asked for right away. I don't blame them. So we made certain compromises with a lot of the requests, including those from, this particular portion of our operations. They concurred with the timeline. So it definitely, they come with the ask for right now. But they did concur with this. And so I'm sure they'd be happy if you wanted it to be moved up. But at this point, they were comfortable with this timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Administrator Rodriguez, one thing that I would note, the nursing home section, which is pages 36 through 42, the Department Oversight Committee on those items is listed as the Health Committee, but I think the Project Approval Committee for most, if not all of those things, should probably be the Property Committee.
Thank you. Yes, we can fix that. Yes, I see your point. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments from the committee at all before we start to wrap up the meeting? Well, I would extend my thanks again to staff for all of the work that goes in, not only to the capital improvement plan itself and building that out, especially with reformatting it for 2021, but especially working on the budget every year. If Assistant Administrator Dreyer is in there, and Assistant Administrator Taylor's, shout outs to them as well for all the work and the hours that they put in on both of those rather thick documents. For those who may be sitting at home and watching, I can show you that this is what the capital improvement plan looks like, and this is a copy of the county's annual budget. It's roughly a ream of paper, and it's very small print, as you can see. So there are many hours that go in, that staff at all levels go into putting those documents together for the board to be able to spend time reviewing and use that as an annual fiscal guide for the year. So thanks to, again, to the staff for all of your work on that. Administrator Rodriguez, anything else to bring to the committee?
No, I concur. Thank you, Chairman Barnett, for bringing up Assistant County Administrators Taylor and Dreyer. You know, it takes an incredible amount of dedication to deal with that very large document, as you showed, but also to the department heads for coming to the table. I encouraged all department heads to bring forth all of their requests, and so I had a little, you know, smile and chuckle about how they all wish we would approve everything. But I've tried to build an environment where they do ask for everything they need, even if at the end of the day, county administration does not bring it forth as a recommendation or does some compromising with department heads. And so that was just a great opportunity to bring that up, because our process really started way back in May and June and July and in August. We met more than once with most departments, and it was really a collective effort. So thank you for noting that. I don't have anything else to bring forward other than I just want to say, you know, we could have spent all evening going over the capital improvement book, and we could have, and we will be bringing forth through the schedule, Chairman, that you brought up, updates regarding this. So this will continue to be alive and be a part of our discussions in this committee, and I'm really looking forward to that. But I don't have anything else to bring up at this time, so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Move on to item 5 on the agenda, other business and communications. Is there anything else that should come before the committee this evening? All right, item 6, recommend payment of bills and transfers. We have from our county auditor prepaid total of bills for $2,752,607.84. Would entertain a motion from the committee to approve those bills. Motion by member Smith, second by member Frederick. Any questions or discussions from the committee? Okay, Ms. Morlock, please call the roll. The chair will vote.
Member Johnston,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Friedrich,
Yes.
Chairman Barnett.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. All right, well, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Thank you all very much for your service to the county, and have a good night and enjoy some baseball, even for you Cub fans out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.